fasten your seatbelts, because the story you will hear today represents the saga of the improbable, something that only happens once or twice a decade. The impressive story of a young entrepreneur who overcame all the expectations of disbelief placed upon him and made the impossible happen. His name, currently kept secret, gave rise to the pseudonym Insider, a true legend in Brazil when the subject is the financial market. His story, told by many, always begins with the phrase passion, fire, and glory. You will soon understand the reason for this and why. On his journey, he went from a simple entrepreneur to accumulating a fortune of over $12 billion in just 12 months. What did he do? What was his discovery? What is his legacy? And what does he do today? It all begins with the birth of his son in the year 2014. Until then, he worked helping his father with construction and house repairs in his small hometown. With the birth of his son, he understood he needed to put his most audacious plan into practice, to become a millionaire. His goal was to provide his beloved son with a life that he himself had not been able to have. However, throughout his history, since his childhood, he was certain that he would do something big that would change the world around him, his life, and the lives of the people around him. He then decided to begin his studies about the financial market, open an account with a small broker, and start his speculations, soon understanding that if most people leave there everything they have earned, how then could he, on the contrary, obtain everything and a little more for himself? In his studies, he soon understood that those who were most benefited by this capitalist system that prevails in the world were always ahead of their time by looking not only at what was offered to them, but by understanding the countless ways in which a single subject could provide hundreds or even thousands of possibilities and paths to obtain better performance. So it was at this moment that he had a big idea. While researching, he could understand that the technology for this type of market was precarious and the instruments provided were inefficient. In his speeches, he said that, deliberately, large institutions kept people in ignorance by affirming that they could earn some money in the financial market with the goal of making them true addicts, where they would put not only their investments but also, often, their own lives to make it work somehow, thus feeding an entire ecosystem where bankers and financial institutions could provide more and more low-quality products as if they were the true El Dorado, the city of gold. He understood that, mathematically, the world's financial balance is negative, meaning that if all the offerings provided by the financial systems in whatever country were settled in a single day, the financial system would never have the real conditions to pay this bill, because what was provided literally does not exist in the sufficient quantity promised and with guarantees. For this reason, every year they become desperate to meet their targets and offer more and more low-quality products as if they were the great solution that would make them rich. If it weren't like this, it would be the end. There lies the solution, he thought. Mathematics can perfectly tell whether an asset will pay you or not, whether the movement happening before our eyes is just an illusory fraud to deceive us or not, where, through mathematical formulas and long-known mathematical theories, he discovered it was possible to understand when price movements in the financial market were being deliberately inflated and when they were real movements. He created something innovative, using a platform already known in the markets, adapting functions to mathematically determine how everything should proceed when these moments occurred. The result, his first $100 reached an absurd $800 in just 4 months. Still in the testing phase, he publicized his discovery on internet forums, reporting his experiences and results, soon being invited to participate in a conference in the state of Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, where, alongside other enthusiasts on the subject, it was possible to discuss his discovery and the expectations for the future of its development. At this conference, well-known figures, always repeating the same slogans of every year, no longer mattered. That young man with a poorly understood and disruptive idea, different from anything they had ever heard, dominated the conversations among friends in the days following the event. It was then that some people approached him with an interest in investing in his research. Inexperienced T, at that very moment, accepted a partnership with a businessman from the custom furniture sector, who saw in the young insider the possibility of scaling financial heights he could never before have imagined. He promised him investments that would total more than $1 million to continue his development. A promise that was never fulfilled. However, making him believe that he would really invest $1 million. He instructed him to start an investment company to rent a beautiful office space in a building, create a high-standard office, there to receive potentially interested clients, rent a high-end apartment so people would see in him a person to emulate, and a luxury car so he could portray someone successful. Insider did just that. His savings were gone and his partner's investment never came. It was then that Insider, having little time to make enough money on his own, began to work to promote his software, contacting other people from the conference that had taken place in Rio de Janeiro, and on internet forums where he quickly obtained many contracts to maintain the new life and continue with his purpose. Where the software in a short time turned that amount into $500,000. The new partner, full of plans, then proposed to take over the administration of the company and handle all communication with clients, having total control over the finances and business administration. However, the $10 million wouldn't be necessary to invest. Since the software was self-sufficient in promoting and growing the finances and the business, upon receiving Insider's refusal, serious problems began to occur. The next 12 months would be of great turbulence for Insider, where he began to be reported by his newest partner, who was an influential person. In his circle of influence were judges, police chiefs, prosecutors, and lawyers, both renowned and of dubious reputation due to unscrupulous business. The goal: to convince Insider to hand over not only the technology, but also his enterprise. Insider, driven by passion for what he was doing, for he was not acting for himself, but to ensure a promising future for his beloved son, stood firm, without yielding to blackmail and unfair interests. Soon, accusations of fraud, articles in newspapers, and prime-time television reports began to talk about Insider. His reputation was quickly thrown in the trash, and now everyone looked at him with contempt. Insider, accused of various crimes which he, through his lawyers, claims he never committed, today lives in exile, where his location is unknown, whether he is in Brazil or not. His rights to remain close to his beloved son were revoked, his arrest was ordered, and his name was cast into oblivion. But the legend is still alive, when in the year 2025, a post on a forum reported having received a message from Insider, who would have provided him with the technology, the software, so that this person could represent him, allowing anyone who wanted to now have access to this technology. The discussion quickly became the champion topic on the online forum. Many did not believe it, until the account, deactivated for years, belonging to Insider, was reactivated, and only one message was posted: passion, fire, and glory. For this was exactly the username used by the person who claimed to have been contacted by Insider. There were no more doubts. Insider himself was claiming that passion, fire, and glory was telling the truth. And now the saga and race to find the software started one of the largest movements in the country ever recorded in the search for this software. The difficulty found by many in obtaining access to this technology lies in the cost. You do not pay a fixed price for it. However, you need to have at least $100,000 available to be permitted to use it, where 10% of this amount will be what you pay to use the software for 1 year. That is, $10,000. 10% on any amount you wish to trade with the software will be the charged fee, with a minimum starting value of $100,000. Some posts on forums about the subject claim and show images that, upon using it, they obtained impressive results and made themselves available to show account statements, because the statement contains the record and signature of the software. Others, in the hope that one day they will manage to get access or have enough money to be able to use it. Specialized reports on the subject also indicate that some companies in the financial sector in Brazil, from the Brazilian financial center known as Faria Lima, would have acquired the software with the aim of performing reverse engineering, but without promising results, due to a part of the code not being in the code itself. It seems Insider thought of everything, as part of the code is accessed remotely by the code itself, meaning he still maintains control. Ahead of his time, some figures impress by reasoning years and even centuries ahead of their time, just like Satoshi Nakamoto, whose technology, Bitcoin, remains alive. Insider remains on the rise, even after many believed his name had been forgotten. But on his official forum page, his legacy is there, etched in a simple phrase: passion, fire, and glory.